Sometimes always doesn't mean always. There are three things I want to get to. There are three things I want to get to in this video. God help me. Harry Potter, Seventh-day Adventism, and the absolute necessity of what I call the vegan cross. I welcome a better name. I've come up with the name Flora. Not that I've come up with that, it just seems that's the best. The flower. The flower which becomes the fruit. I just posted a video about I hope it all works out okay. When I've done wrong, I'll sing a song and face another day. But anyway, the main theme of that little ditty is I hope, 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 which goes back to Hebrews 11:1 in the New Living Translation. What is faith? It is the confident assurance that what we hope for is going to happen. It is the evidence of things we cannot yet see. God gave his approval. Well, 11:2. God gave his approval to people in days of old because of their faith. Approval. What's that mean? It means you're stepping outside the bounds. But you were given that approval because less worser is more better. Harry Potter, Seventh-day Adventists, the necessity of the vegan cross, what I call the vegan cross. But anyway, a couple pages after James 3. And this goes back to I forget what passage that is when Jesus says that it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth but what comes out it, you know. But that whole thing was talking about bread. And he was talking to the Pharisees. So it's not like a blanket statement. This in James is a blanket statement. It seems as though it's related to what Jesus was saying. What do I mean by that? By giving legitimacy to the wickedness of the tongue, it seems to also give legitimacy in the blanket statement. It doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, but what comes out it. But Jesus at that time was talking to Pharisees, right? This is a bit more of a blanket statement. And what was Jesus talking to the Pharisees about? He was talking about whether or not you eat bread with hands you've washed or hands covered in the, toil of your work. That was the controversy. That was why Jesus said that. In James, it's a little different. And it doesn't support the blanket statement of it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, but what comes out. Because that argument is one of the, well, conscious and also subconscious arguments that many of us have heard. It's a logical glitch in our computation. We're telling ourselves, oh, it doesn't matter what comes in, but what comes out. Well, no, that's what Jesus was saying to the Pharisees, and they were talking about bread the whole time. Flesh never came into the mix. Right. But anyway, this is something I'd highlighted before. So also, the tongue is, this is 3:5. So also, New Living Translation. So also the tongue is a small thing, but what enormous damage it can do. A tiny spark can set a great forest on fire, and the tongue is a flame of fire. It is full of wickedness that can ruin your whole life. It can turn the entire course of your life into a blazing flame of destruction, for it is set on fire by hell itself. True. True up to the core. True all the way through everything. Up to the core. Up to the core. Not quite through the core, but up to the core. Right up to it. Let me back up. 3, 1. Dear brothers and sisters, first of all, what a lovely greeting. Dear brothers and sisters. What a lovely way to address. Of course, back then. Not many of you should become teachers in the church. For we who teach will be judged by God. So, like, that's what I'm doing right now, right? Because I'm saying, trust me, I'm being judged. Actually, don't trust me. Don't trust me. Because if you trust me, you trust anyone, right? Dear brothers and sisters, not many of you should become teachers in the church. For we who teach will be judged by God with greater strictness. We all make many mistakes, but those who control their tongues can also control themselves in every other way. That statement, it's this type of language which killed Greece, killed ancient Rome, killed Egypt, wrapped the whole thing up. We can make a large horse turn around and go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. And a tiny rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot wants it to go, even though the winds are strong. So also the tongue is a small thing, but what enormous damage it can do. A tiny spark can set a great forest on fire, and the tongue is a flame of fire. It is full of wickedness that can ruin your whole life. It can turn the entire course of your life into a blazing flame of destruction, for it is set on fire by hell itself. Going on. 3.7. People can tame all kinds of animals and birds and reptiles and fish, but no one can tame the tongue. Perfect, and perfect for the time, and no one of that time could tame the tongue, except for one. Some philosophies are correct for the zeitgeist, for the spirit of the age. Some philosophies are correct, essentially, in so much as power, in the will to power, in the will to the good power is concerned. That statement was more or less correct and effective. It hit the bullseye, right? But even the bullseye is a gray zone, right? Some people hit it better. Like the bullseye of the bullseye. You know what I mean? You throw that dart. If this is the bullseye, like, so hit anything on it and it's a kill shot. It's a bullseye. Right? Now, but if I'm the bullseye, I'm going to give a big shit. Like, you know, if you hit me here, like, bing, bullseye. Or if you hit me here. The bullseye's bullseye is worth a lot more. Even if we don't get credit for it. Even if we don't get credit for it, you know, if this is the bullseye, so far as the numbers go, it don't matter if you hit it right here, or right here. Right. So far as the numbers go. But if you throw it every time right here, you know, if this is your radius, or if this is your radius, huh? What do you think? The kill shot split the arrow. Just saying. Harry Potter. Fuck. Harry Potter. Seventh-day Adventism. And the absolute necessity and predominance of the teleological pull of what I call Flora, the vegan cross. Whew, man. Right. They said the revolution won't be televised. Nope. It'll be on YouTube, though. But not only that, the Third Testament will not be written. The Second Testament, the New Testament, the Second Testament doesn't negate the First Testament. In eternity it does, but not in time. The First Testament is still valid. the New Testament, the Second Testament, is still valid. Muhammad was correct that he was the last prophet. He was the last prophet of the Old Testament. That's not meant to be disrespectful, because the Old Testament is still valid. And the Old Testament wouldn't remain without the New. Without the New Testament. The whole entire Abrahamic gig wouldn't be around without all of its pieces and parts. Islam is the second Old Testament still valid. The new, what we call the New Testament, is the Second Testament, right? Many people would call, who's the villain of the ages? Hitler, right? Who could ever be more of a villain? What more would you have to do? And not only that, the art, quite frankly, there probably are worse villains. But the proclamation, the boldness of the art, and it's so interesting that he made what were considered these lame architectural drawings, right? When you listen to the narrative from either an art history point of view or from a historical point of view, a narrative, biographical point of view, he's making these architectural drawings. He was a good artist. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's better than almost everybody except for like one kid from where I went to college. He was fucking really good compared to like me or like everybody except for like one kid I knew in college who grew up just down the road and I don't even know. Sucks. But anyway, and he made these, so there's that, right? Oh, this return to what he would consider classical art, even though the German rendition, because people criticize Rome for having ripped off Greece, right? And then there's that, I think, maybe I'm getting my history wrong, but there was some like Roman sculpture that was mixed up with like a Michelangelo, like fake. Like maybe Michelangelo had faked an old Roman sculpture. I think I'm getting my history mixed up, but some of the old Roman sculptures were like so beautiful, but there's supposedly within the milieu of the underground story, mathematically, there's a discrepancy that you'd pretty much have to be either a genius or an archangel to understand. I don't know. In the proportions. Don't know. But anyway, because like sometimes we Americans like sneer a little bit at like some of the Russian stuff because it's like so bold, but at least the Russian shit's like fucking like it's like I mean, I guess I can't that was awful. I know you're gonna hate me for it, but you know what I mean, like there's some gravitas to it, but like some of the old, like when some of the old German propaganda shit tried to replicate classicism. It was a flop. Yet, what was so effective, right? This is crazy. Think of this from, all right, if you're into art or art history, think of this from an art history perspective. Put away the emotions for a minute and just think about it as an art history perspective. What is the most modern art of modern art? Andy Warhol. Period. Why? He made paintings, prints of just stacked Campbell's soup cans. People, that's one of the things too, people talk about Jackson Pollock and like the abstraction of it, but it's like, well, no, it's this even abstraction, right? There's actually there's a pattern to it. It's just a little bit more complex. It has a few more variables, but it's noticeable. It's a pattern, right? So in a sense, like the Campbell soup can fucking paintings were like even more abstract because it's like, what? And there's this, well, I wouldn't say it's famous, but I had this documentary, Who Gets to Call It Art or something like that. And it was basically a biography of this particular art dealer, guy mixed up in the art world. I can't remember his name. But anyway, he was hanging out with Andy Warhol a lot. And they were being interviewed. I can't remember by who. And the correspondent asked Andy Warhol, he's like, blah, 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 blah. Are you just pulling off some big kind of scam? It seems like you're just, ripping people off. It seems like you're just playing this big joke on people. Like, and he was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. It was perfect, And what's more abstract than that? Anyway, like, what's more modern than that? No one can ever pull that. Like, even Marcel, like, one of my favorite artists, top 3, Marcel Duchamp, right? He was my big guy when I was younger. I liked Marcel Duchamp, and I liked the people who were influenced him in the 60s up to Larry Rivers, right? So, in my opinion, like I can't remember what they were called, what's his name? Uh, 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 after the, like after Pollock, the guy who made the American flag painting, Jasper Johns, and what was that other guy? My favorite guy's name. I'm totally having a brain fart. He's the guy who said that he didn't understand abstract expressionism. And the reason he gave was because to be an abstract expressionist, you have to have a lot of extra free time to feel sorry for yourself or something like that. It's just like, yes! And he was sitting on top of like a fucking, I don't know, 15-foot ladder or something like that. What the hell's his name? Man, he was the best. Made those huge prints. Fuck. Yeah, total brain fart. He's like my favorite. Kind of my favorite. Well, maybe not my favorite artist, but like one of my favorite artists and tied for first place for favorite artist person. He made the machine that destroys itself, which was like a one-night exhibition of a machine that destroyed itself. Like that was how the machine was built, so that like at the end of the process it destroyed itself. Kind of like, yeah, Black Swan. Black Swan, that movie, a perfect story. Perfect story, perfect. But not the most perfect. The most perfect was our man, JC Ichthos, I see. Am I going to get to Harry Potter? 24 minutes in. I don't know how much time I have on this new phone. I think I have quite a while. I have to readjust myself and calm down. I never get to what I'm getting to. But somehow in the mix, it's funny. Because on this video, I'm getting to what I didn't get to on some other one. And in some other video, I've already gotten to, and will get to later, what I'm getting to in this video. That's how it works. Don't worry about what you will say. I worry a great deal, but at some point it's just like, boink. It's kind of like I think it was like it was definitely my first month of being a house painter. I was working with this dude, and I didn't know. I'd sold paint for 5 years, so I was coming at painting from a corporate perspective. The corporate perspective is cover your ass. Period. Cover your ass. So even though you can recoat something in 3 hours, on the can it says wait 16. Cover your ass. There's a big, big difference between the letter and the spirit. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. A big difference. I want to get to the vegan cross. Symbols of the vegan cross. Popeye, for one. Oh, wait a minute. Popeye. Why Popeye? Why Popeye? Because when Popeye opens a can of spinach, that's how he gets strong. That's how Popeye gets strong, by eating a can of spinach. And he has this nice little vegan cross on his arm, on his big fat forearms. Why does he have big fat forearms? The rest of him is skinny and thin, right? Why is Popeye skinny and thin? Well, for one, he's a vegan. With the spinach, right? But the other thing is because his hands. You get big forearms. You get big forearms by using your hands and your fingers. So even though this old cartoon, the Fleischman cartoons, wow. Well, like, and I'm not even saying Popeye was my favorite cartoon when I was younger. He wasn't. But that image. He ate spinach to get strong because of the iron in the blood. The iron. Mars, Moses, right? And he gulped that spinach down. And the other guy was like bigger everywhere else. Brutus was big everywhere. Taller, everything. But his forearms were smaller in his hands, right? Popeye, on the other hand, this little guy. But what did he have? Huge forearms. Where do huge forearms come from? Using your hands. Doing. Those are the hands reaching from Aten. Doing. Are we saved by faith or works? We're saved by faith, and once we're saved by faith, we work for free. I'm saying that all high and mighty. I'm not high and mighty. I put everything into this, and everything else in my life, trust me, is complete shit. But somebody's got to think 200, 300, 400 years into the future. Somebody's got to do it. Well, that's all. No big deal. We wouldn't want everybody to be like me. If everybody was like me, society would crumble tomorrow. But if there weren't people like me, society would have crumbled. Just saying. Okay, that was too much. We're all important. And the most important thing is morality. And we all interface with space and time differently. So the very simplest hope of being good and doing good, that's the key. The key is very small. The key isn't complicated. An old school skeleton key. An old school key from like the 1800s. Some, romantic object. Little thing with a couple boinks on it, And we say, wow, that couldn't open the door on my smart car. Well, your smart car key couldn't open that old door either, right? Once again, I haven't gotten to what I'm trying to get to. I had 3 things I wanted to do. Okay, I'm gonna do them. Harry Potter, Seventh-day Adventism, the absolute preeminence of the vegan cross, the teleological pull of the Omegle vegan cross. Before so, to lift my spirits, because I'm falling. I'm falling by the weight of the subject and by the weight of the day. Before I get to that, this is my favorite thermal shirt, and I've worn it before. I've had it for years. This was accidental. When I was like pulling off a roller cover or something, I like whacked myself and whatever. But it's like the awesomest. It's the awesomest accident symbol. Like it's a total accident. It's just like the awesomest. And then a couple days ago, I made this symbol. The idea, well, I got it from, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. been on my wall for a long time. That one goes out to The Oranges of Hieronymus Bosch by Miller. But anyway, yeah, I thought this was a great symbol for the eternal flame because that other image and this image are really just an infinity symbol with like the bottom half curled up, you know? And that one it's round and this one has a crease. So mathematically they're different objects, though symbolically they're the same object. And then I was looking around online, well, YouTube. That's YouTube's 80% of my consumption, you know. And I saw an ad for Airbnb and I'd never noticed it before. And I recognized that it was almost this exact same symbol except for the top is rounded off and there are straight lines. It's more triangular. It's less of a spade, less of a heart, you know. But anyway, well, I came up with two arguments. One is because if we consider it a mathematical object, and there are like basically graph theory or number theory, group theory, like theoretical maps that, not even maps, but graphs, but not in the XY sense, like that would describe such objects. And technically speaking, like an object like this with a crease and without a crease mathematically are separate objects. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is like, I was like, fuck, I came up with this awesome image, but it's already being used by Airbnb because it's kind of the same shape, you know, but it's, well, it has the crease, but like symbolically it's the same shape, you know. But yeah, the eternal flame was my idea. The eternal flame. Because we think of the figure 8, right? And people talk about that as being infinity. Even though really it's kind of like a foil. It's a foil into it's a foil inside it's a foil that traces the surface of a sphere in a particular topological path. And it's a twisted Pringle, you know, like an infinity sign. It's a twisted Pringle. So it's a sphere, and if you hold that twisted Pringle one way, it more or less looks like a 0, and if you twist it another way, it looks like an 8. You know. That's more what I think about that. But that's just round and round, round and round. But even if we think of it plainly or just in like the quote-unquote naive sense, and I don't mean anything bad about naive, because we need to align our naive senses. We need our simple little itty-bitty stories and twinkle twinkle little star songs. We need all of that to line up. It's not that being highbrow is bad, and it's not that being lowbrow is bad. It's that that's one of the meanings of being a full human being. Like, for instance, you could consider yourself diverse because you eat all these different foods. You're culturally diverse because you because you have Taco Tuesday. Don't get me wrong. I'd be lining up for Taco Tuesday, but never mind all that shit about corn, but you know what I mean. And or there are people who are well-traveled around the world, right? They can go to Paris and they know all the right shops and museums and they can speak French and they could go to Seoul. You know, they can speak Hangul. Hangul, which fucking like a beam of light fucking came down into the world. from Sejong. The winds are whipping. Shoo. Shoes stirring. It's cold and it's dry. The dry wind. Shoo. That's an Egyptian god. So now you're already hating on me, but let me ask you one question, bro. Where you think that shoe and Yeshu come from? Or the Yah, right? I am that I am is something along the lines of Eya Asher Eya. The Yah of Yahweh is basically a truncation. It's basically a truncation of Ea. Ea, which is the moon god. So when people say Yahweh came from a moon god, moon goddess, that's not exactly it, because it was a transliteration between languages. So you could say to the public face, you could say to the priests before you, yes, I'm worshiping this Egyptian goddess. Well, meantime, beneath the surface, you're secretly in your heart worshiping this Eya. I am. Truncated to Yah. Yah. Eya. Yah. Yeah. In the same way that the whole reason Ichthos became so big, as a secret, the fish, the Vesica Pisces, right? Why that became so, you see, a Vesica Pisces with Ichthos, that's Jesus, right? It goes on and on and on from there, but that was a secret code, supposedly, around Greece for Christians, right? So what I'm saying is that the Eya, the I am, the Yah, the moon goddess of Egypt, was like this transliteration. So there were many who worshipped this moon goddess, but it wasn't really the moon goddess they were worshipping. They were worshipping the Eya. In the same way that, like, Ichthos, why was that used as code? Well, because supposedly when, and I only say supposedly because there's more to the story, not because I'm disclaiming it. I'm not killing it. I'm enriching it. Trust me. The Ichthos, I-C-T-H-O-S, roughly transliterated. The I and the C were the Iosos Christos. I-O-S-S-U-S, something like that. Jesus, Iosos Christos, I-C, Ichthos. Which is why that was like a big term. Well, I'm seeing that's the same thing about Yah, is that Yah is Eya. And it's just a transliteration. Just the same way as KC. I knew this dude when I used to sell paint, and he's friends with my boss, actually. But anyway, his name is KC. You call him Casey. Casey, right? So when I met him, he was Casey. When I met him, he was Casey. Oh, this is Casey. Hey, how you doing, Casey? You know, when I used to sell paint. Then I look up his account, and I get it wrong. Why? Because it's a KC. Like, those are his, like, initials. And people call him Casey. Casey. Right. But that's different. I don't know what his first name is. What starts with a K? Could be Kevin. Could be Keith. I don't know. He could be Keith Christopher. He could be Kevin Columbus. I don't know. But, like, Casey. That's what he's known by, right? But that's different than if your first name is C-A-S-E-Y. These things happen all over the place. Harry Potter. Oh God, I'm not even gonna get to my first fucking point. Fuck. I always do that. Alright, I'm gonna at least mention it. Harry Potter. Alright, maybe I'm gonna step back for a sec. Eternal Flame. Because we're meant to spire, right? It's the same shape, right? Now, mathematically, you could disagree because there's a crease, but is it a crease or is it just a perspectival? Is this a 2D object or is this a 3D object? Right? Is this point even touching? Or is this the particular way the curve, like for instance, is there, if this is an XY plane, is there a strong Z at this point, reaching back and forth? You know, the whole thing could just be like a ring just a little bit twisted, but at one perspective it looks like this. It's the eternal flame. It's the eternal flame, it's eternity, it's God, looking at God's creation, looking at the omega point. God answering a question. And then a heart. With the tear. Because the one of the things people talk about, you know, alchemical stuff, or magic or sorcery, or even just within the mystery, even in the Paschal mystery, the great work, right? But like the tear is the key to love. Compassion, sympathy, empathy, all that kind of stuff. Eternity is not the figure eight. It doesn't just go round and 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 round. That's not how it works. The whole idea is to increase this and to round out this. The collective soul, all those saved, all souls, where we're going. I'm sorry. Is that better? Harry Potter. Seventh-day Adventists. The absolute necessity, the imperative of the vegan cross. Piece of bread. Obviously, you figured out that this is my favorite. It's like $3. That's why. You're like, oh, that ain't good for you. Well, if you're a wine, if you're a wine snob, like if it's got sulfates, dude, store down the road. Literally, like 200-300 bottles of wine. They only have one that doesn't have sulfites, whatever. And I forgot which one it was. And the guy who told me stop working there, and I'm not as friendly with other people, and I'm shy when I'm in public these days. But yeah, Harry Potter, Seventh-day Adventism, the necessity of the vegan cross. Not necessity sounds harsh. The inevitability. Yet it's an inevitability that requires your work. Like, I guess I'm not talking, well, if you're watching this, I guess I'm talking to you. If you know what I mean. You were born for this. And there's all kind of life coaches out there to tell you how to, like, get by and succeed and all that. But, you know, if we're looking at the heavenly realms and everything, there's nowhere to go unless we do this. My neighbors are laughing. That's kind of nice. As usual, I'll have to get to what I was going to say next time. Alright, in my last video, what I was trying to get to with, well, I say last video, I think I'm going to marry these two videos, but what I was trying to say about Hitler's propaganda is that, at the one sense, in the art history world, he's considered a subpar artist. And he created these exhibitions to deride modern art of that age. expressionism prior to abstract expressionism. After expressionism is pop art. And the art of the propaganda machine of the Nazis was the most pop art. It was the most modern. Warhol didn't create something new. Warhol carbon copied in novelty what Goebbels created physically with gravity. When Oscar Wilde said, "All art is quite useless," he was saying that in a court of the letter of the law. No bigger lie has ever been stated than when Oscar Wilde said that. And it can't be held against him. The picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde's art was too valuable to be lost. Occasionally. Occasionally we must save ourselves to save our art. Our children of the noumena. We have physical children, but we also have spiritual children. Story. What wins? What wins? What wins? What wins? Well, might makes right. Fucking ain't right. Fucking might makes right. What supports might? What supports might? The story. The story wins. I'm not talking about like the book The Story, but kinda. The story wins. The best story wins. The greatest fiction. Fiction and fact have the same etymological root. Fiction and fact have the same root. A made thing, a description, a story, a telling. The best story wins. Ye writers, ye storytellers. I imagine the best storyteller you know is someone you know. They don't have a book. They don't have a movie. They don't have a script. There's someone you know in your life who tells this phenomenal story and you're captivated. Right? The best story wins. Now, whether you know it or not, stories reach backward through time. They're a prayer at a different oscillation. The best story reaches backwards through time. If you perfect the story, you perfect the world. It's counterintuitive, but it's not. The biggest and best story ever written is, you know. The second best, best and biggest and the biggest of this age, of course, is Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter. There's only one mistake. I haven't read the books and I haven't listened to the audiobooks. I've only watched the movies. And you're like, you dumb fucker. It's like, dude, got a lot of shit going on. Got to cut through it, And I'm reading other stuff. It's just not that. But the movie's awesome, right? And so far as we can tell from J.K. Rowling, like, the movies catch the spirit. So J.K. Rowling wrote the letter of the law. And as it so happens, in that universe, in the Harry Potter universe, the movies and the books, even where they differ, if the books are the letter, the movies are the spirit. That's one way of thinking about it. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's pretty darn good. Even though they're not synonymous, they're simpatico. Right? Anyway, I never read the books, but in the movies, I've watched them all several times. I'll watch them several times more. It will always yield more fruit. But anyway, there's only one logical flaw. Only one. Only one. One line of text at the key crucial moment of the climax. Having that said, that's not even the most important point of the movie. It's the second most important point of the movie. Of the movies. Of the dynasty. Right? This 30-year-old, well, it stretches back to the 90s, and now here we are in the 20s. So yeah, a 30-year dynasty. Because I didn't read the book, I don't have the words and the images. I just have the sounds. Hermione? 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 It's kind of like there's a few jobs I work on where there are dudes named Wayne, and there's a few jobs I work on where there are dudes named Wayne. So there's Wayne. Wait. There are jobs I work on where there are dudes named Wayne, and there are dudes I work on, jobs I work on where there are dudes named Wade. And like, anytime I meet anybody named Wayne or Wade, I call them Wayne Wade or Wade Wayne. Like, I don't know what their name is. I'm like, yeah, Wayne or Wade. Like, so when I see him, just like, hey dude, hey bro, like, if your name's Wayne or Wade, I'll never say hello and speak your name, because when I hear Wayne, I hear Wade, and when I hear Wade, I hear Wayne. It's kind of like, then we work with this other dude whose name is Brett, but people call him Bert and Bertie. So when I see Brett, well, now I call him Brett, but it took me 10 years before I'd speak his name, because I was like, people call him Bert. People call him Bertie. People call him Brett. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't get it. So after 10 years, I finally figured out his name's Brett. But people call him Bertie. That's how it goes. These simple lessons in our life teach us how history was wrote, the high story, the story of stories. the best story wins. Right? In some sense, like now, look for facts, definitely. But start, or at least consider, starting with the story. The best story wins. If you create the best story, it reaches backwards in time as a prayer to create the conditions, to assimilate the histories, to tell you what to say. That's the way it works. And even when you get it right, it ain't pretty. We're pulling ourselves up out of the darkness of the ocean. People get all giddy about the ocean. People get all giddy about space in our nice suits. Go to the ocean. Go to space. What is it? Cold. A cold mouth that eats everything. Step back. Step back. Step back. I'm going to take a minute and step back. One logical flaw in Harry Potter. That's what I'm going to get to. But this is all relevant. One logical flaw in Harry Potter. Step back. There's only one. It's a perfect story up to the point. There's only one story that hits the point. I'm sorry. Hits the point. This is going to sound bad, right? What's the revelation? It's the end of times. Not the end of time. The end of times. What's the revelation? The revelation is the apocalypse. What's the apocalypse? The apocalypse is the revelation, the revealing. Truth. Simply stated that you can understand. That's the revelation. We're all looking for, It will be like that in the heavenly realms, but here on earth it'll be like this. Oh. So in a sense, like, you can't have the apocalypse, you can't have Armageddon, you can't have the revelation, you can't have revelations, you can't have the apocalypse, you can't have the end of times, you can't have all of that without what? What's the catalyst? What's the key ingredient of the apocalypse, of the end of time, so to speak, of the second coming? What's the catalyst? The Antichrist. The most beloved of God's angels. Angels are atemporal. Atemporal beings. Now, this especially I'm giving to the, or relaying to the mathematicians or physicists who, at least conceptually, perhaps, might be able to make some sense of this as far as an atemporal being. Like, if you're an atemporal being, or if you're a multi-temporal being, multi-dimensional, right, then you can pop up. So say your fingertips, right, the hand is a soul, so to speak. The hand is a being. So say multi-dimensionally, you are your hand. You could pop your fingertips above the surface and it looks like there's 5 beings. It looks like there's 5 beings. It looks like there's 5 beings. It's 5 people, but there's only one. It's just a matter of perspective. Harry Potter only makes one mistake. All of it. 30-year, and it's going to go on for another 300 years plus. One flaw. When Harry Potter essentially dies and essentially goes to a kind of heaven with more or less Dumbledore, right? And Harry reaches beneath the bench where Lord Voldemort is all curled up. And Dumbledore says, "You can't save him." No. It's perfect for the story. I have no complaints. I love Harry Potter. Love it. It's great. An enormous gift for the world. But what I'm saying is that's the logical flaw. No one left behind. No one. That ties into the sympathy of the devil. Now I know that there's that song, Mick Jagger and everything. But you ain't got to be all Mick Jagger, Johnny Dazzles, to make that point. Does God love or hate the devil? Does Jesus love or hate Judas? Judah? And also, yeah, Harry Potter, right? Who's the first Potter? Kenoom. Of like the somewhere between the pre-dynastic and the third dynasty, Kenoom. Right? That's Abram. That's Abraham. The potter, who was a ram. So you got this twisting, this circling of the pot, making the pot. And then also sideways, these curlies. Though in Egypt it was. I guess let me put it this way, because I was going to get into Seventh-day Adventism, just to give dear sweet Ms. White her due. Because Harry Potter, Khnum, Khnum, the barely ever mentioned and one of the first, if not the first, Egyptian god, Egyptian creator god. Was hairy, because he was a ram, and rams are hairy everywhere, and he was a potter. So the first Harry Potter was Khnum, Khnum, who was the root of the Abrahamic, Josephine, Judean. Who's the Antichrist? Well, this comes back to Seventh-day Adventism, because there's the whole gig with the Millerites. I guess you'd have to be into this kind of thing to really know what I'm talking about, but There were the Millerites, there was the Great Disappointment, and then there was Helen White and Seventh-day Adventism. The Millerites were crushed. They were destroyed because the prophecy didn't come true. Then there was the Great Disappointment. Then there was Helen White, who got it right, man. Helen White got it right. The way she writes about being a vegan or a vegetarian is the way Paul writes about whether or not to eat meat. They're on the same side. It's just that Paul talked about it 2,000 years ago, and Ellen White talked about it by the time you're watching this 200 years ago. Probably. I mean, I don't know when you're watching this. Ellen White. She is the first book of the Next Testament. Like it or not. I just realized that like right now. She's not a Zephaniah, she's a John. So when we're talking about the Antichrist, right? The Antichrist ain't Christ, right? So why would we expect, right? Because Christ is fully God and fully man. The Antichrist, would we expect the Antichrist to be not fully God and fully man? Would not the Antichrist be not Christ and not man? Completely a story. But that comes into the sympathy of the devil and the empathy of the devil. We pit God against the devil. That just makes things worse. If God is perfect love, God loves all. The healing of the world is the healing of the devil. In that scene where Dumbledore tells Harry that Lord Voldemort can't be saved, that's the logical flaw. That's the logical flaw of Plato's Republic that denies David. It's a beautiful story. I love it. And the story of Harry Potter is the Antichrist. And I don't even mean that in a bad way. The second coming requires an Antichrist. Antichrist. Well, does that mean? Is it A-N-T-I or is it A-N-T-E? Or is it both? Is it before or is it against? So, my proposition to you is that if Christ comes again, that means the Antichrist comes again. Well, who was the first Antichrist? So, we're brewing, we're broiling, we're conjuring up these images. Who's the first Antichrist? Well, let me answer that question. No, let me see. It must be the Leviathan. It must be Lucifer. It must be Satan. Right? Who's the first not Christ. Who is the first anti, against, before, beside? Who is the first anti-Christ? Back to back, breast to breast, right? Against, opposed, beside. Who is the first Antichrist? St. John, man. Not St. John. John the Baptist. I associate the two together because John the Evangelist, right? Well, of course, there's St. John of the Cross, all that, but St. John the Evangelist rolls out with the word, boom, right into John the Baptist, right? The fire. Pew, goes right to the water. There's a first coming of Christ and a second coming of Christ. There's a first coming of John the Baptist, and there's a second coming of John the Baptist. There's a first coming of the Antichrist, and there's a second coming. John the Baptist was the first coming. He said, I am not Christ. I am not the Messiah. Harry Potter says the same thing. Because if you listen to the man who played the role, he'll tell you, I'm not this thing. Yet, he swept the world. It was a fiction. The second coming is the baptism, and it's imaginary. But yet we know imaginary numbers are logical. Not only are they logical, they're rational. So what did I want to say about Harry Potter is that the Antichrist pops its head up in many different ways. Certainly, can anyone be worse than Hitler? Like, that's such a super... We focus so much on how, like, humans are bad. Men are bad. People are bad. Look what we did. Because of what he did, Hitler. But another philosophical tract is, can anyone be worse? Could anything be worse? World War II, could anything be worse? Hitler, nuclear bomb. Where do you go from there, right? Now it's the East and the West. Never mind Iwo Jima and everything else, right? Can it be worse? Can we survive a worseness than World War II? We know World War III is coming, and let me tell you, it's here. World War III, the Third Reich. And now, we talk about the 20th century, the 21st century. We're in a new millennium, but no one ever says it like it is. We, even if you're watching this 100, 200, 300 years from now, like, we are the birth of the third millennium. Don't think numbers don't matter. The Catholic Church held on by redefining the calendar more correctly. That was a scientific, mathematical, physics marvel that held everything together And no one could escape it because it was a declaration of perfection. There's only one thing logically at the highest point wrong with the Harry Potter movies, is that Voldemort doesn't get saved. Sympathy for the devil. I love the movies. I wouldn't change a thing. I'm just saying, isn't it fitting that the Antichrist is a fictional character? Well, what does that mean? It means no animals were harmed in the production of this video. Like at the end of the Faith No More, It's It song. If the Antichrist were a story and a fiction, well, he's a lie, right? The devil is a lie. Well, what's a lie? A lie is a story. The story's not true. It's fiction. A fiction's a lie. Yet more true. Harry Potter is very true. Yet there's no such thing. Yet it has swept the world. Does that make me look down upon Harry Potter? Does that make me look down upon J.K. Rowling? Right? No. A beautiful gift. Yet still worth noting. That minor logical flaw. One is left behind. No. Never. Ever. We save everyone. We save everything. And you say to yourself, as I say to myself, oh, but it's too big of a world and there's so many people and how can we save everyone? Listen, step back, step back, step back. Look at the entire breathtaking scope of the cosmos, right? The coldness of space, the coldness of the ocean, and not just cold because it's cold, but cold psychologically, sociologically, environmentally. The mouth, man. Your food. If you're in the ocean, you are food. If you're in the wilds, if you're in the jungle, you're food. If you're on the prairies, if you're on the plains, you're food. We, people with a face and a mouth, speaking whatever language. I'm speaking English. There's a lot of us. There's nothing that we know of for sure that we can agree upon besides us that battles against the darkness of the entire fucking universe. 5 billion light years, 13 billion light years, whatever. Us. No one else, nothing else, there's no force. We're force, right? Like, whatever it is that keeps everything going. That spirit lives in us. I don't know what makes all this go. I know there's electricity. I know there's There's water. I know there's water and fire. Our electrical systems are water. We have water wires running all this fucking flame. We are the most amazing machine that we know of in the universe. We are. Why? Not only because we can move like this and move like that, but we're the only mouth. We're the only mouth that says, wait, I'm not going to eat this, even though it'll keep me alive for a minute or two. I'm not going to. I'm going to step back. This thing I'm saving would eat me, but I'm not going to eat it. We are the only thing that does that we know of, that we can see and agree upon. Us. Me, Jeff. You, Susie Luhu, whoever. You. You are one of the only objects in the universe who has the choice of fighting against the darkness that we know of and can agree upon. We must save even the devil, is what I'm saying. No one left behind. No soul left behind. No individual. That must be the philosophy. As soon as we give an inch, we'll give a mile. As soon as we allow, now again, I love Harry Potter. Love Harry Potter. I'm just saying, it's fitting. It's fitting that the Antichrist should be a fiction. That's where I wanted to tie into Nietzsche and Nietzsche's Antichrist and the Millerites and the Great Disappointment, or whatever it was called, and Helen White. But I guess I'll have to get into that some other time. Because Nietzsche wrote that book, The Antichrist. Like, you can't talk about Armageddon or the end of times without talking about the Antichrist, at least these days. And it matters. What comes after affect what comes before, if superluminalism is, well, I assure you, as it will be proven, superluminalism is. Super relativistic action has already been proven, And it had to be scaled down from superluminalism, which has kind of already been proven, but they had to make some tweaks to it. But anyway, superluminalism will be proven, at which point what appears as like anti-causal causality exists, which is teleology, the pull of the future. Shit, I lost my train of thought, but all I'm trying to get to is that I'm not trying to shit on Harry Potter. No one gets left behind. We're not trying to kill the devil. We're trying to kill hatred. Right? If the devil has a soul, if the devil is an individual, then that individual is motivated incorrectly. Correctly all the way up to the point, which is pretty good, and then falls short. It's not our job to destroy that soul or to destroy that motion. It's our job to correct that motion and correct that soul. No one left behind, ever. This is the Third Testament, man. It's coming. Unfortunately, it's going to take a lot longer than I want it. I keep looking around the corner as if it's already there. So I peek my head around saying, is it there? Is it there? And it is. It's just there in the tomorrow of tomorrows. And I can see it with my mind's eye. So I'm Harry. I'm Harry. And I smoke pot. Harry Potter. I wouldn't say just like Kanoom, but, symbolically not so bad. So this one's for Harry Potter. I never got to what I was trying to get to last time. I got to half of the first thing of the three I wanted to get to. Not bad. Whenever I smoke out of a can, I always think of Reality Bites. Don't bogart that can, man. Bone I was talking about. Like, it's so crucial, like, the, that the key logical flaw of Harry Potter is that one moment when Harry Potter is in heaven and Dumbledore tells Harry he can't save. Voldemort. Well, in one sense, symbolically, that's true because, like, there's some bad part of yourself you can't save. Like, it's gonna burn up, right? For me, it's certain parts of my lust that are dying as my body dies. Paying close attention is paying close attention to your own death in slow motion. Not that it has to be that way, but it's mostly that way. And I said in my last recording that that's the second most important lesson. Even though logically it's like the first and most important lesson. Kind of. But emotionally, the most important in the movies, I don't know how it transpires in the books, but in the movies, the most important part of the movies is when, now this is another one of the things, because I've never read the books, I don't know if I don't know if it's like Hermione or Hermione or Hermione or Hermione. There's like 4 different spellings. Well, probably more like 64 spellings, but like 4 pronunciations. Emma Watson. When in either the last or second to last or third to last, whatever movie, when Hermione erases her parents' memory of her. That's the keystone. That's the keystone of the entire movie. She wins where Harry fails. Harry cannot save the wickedness. Again, if we take that symbolically as Voldemort being our false self, then that is true. But if we consider, right, if we consider Voldemort as a completely symbolic object, then Voldemort essentially is an interference pattern of the wrong choices of free will. The wrong choices of the collective free will is the anti-soul, or the negative sense of Leviathan. And it coalesces as a pattern that's not there. That is to be abandoned. However, if we consider Voldemort an actual person, or a soul, or a being, a human, then the determination, the conclusion is the complete diametric opposite, in which case that's a soul. That soul must be saved. And that's the triumph of humidity, humidity, hididity, hermumumi. When she erased her parents' memory of her, she gave up everything. Everything. A complete, faithful action. Willful, magical. To protect. What greater sacrifice could there be? Really? Burning your ship at the shore. We win or we die. That's it. I love you so much I'm willing to give you up. I love you so much I'm willing to disappear from your life. No one has ever loved each other. Right? There's no greater love than the love that we share. And I'm forfeiting it for a greater love. What is that greater love? That greater love is not different than the love that is abandoned. That love, there, Hermione abandons, is the same love she protects. Like, it's not that she's trying to let go of her parents because they're lesser or they're not magical. She's trying to protect them because she loves them so fucking much. And the mission that she's tied up in, the story, the spiral, the spire, the spirit that she is tied up in, is the story of not power, not the seeking of power, but seeking to spread that love. Like, she separates herself from her parents' love and for her love of her parents to protect them so that they just may be safe and live in their own way in their own time, but that she may also excel. Why? Not to abandon that love that her parents gave her, but that simple love, that lacking love in the world. That's it. For everyone, forever. The love of a parent and a child and a parent is the love that is meant to be spread through humanity. For once and for all, forever. Period. And that is the endeavor, that is the conspiracy that Hermitage is engaged with, married to. It is the most heroic act in this whole 30-year saga. In this whole 30-year saga of Harry Potter, that few seconds of film with her murderer. Like, alright, you're gonna think I'm just some fanboy, and I'm not. Well, okay, well, I don't know what I am, but I know this much. I'm a total piece of shit, but the truth's shining through me like a fucking beacon, man. It's like when Pip, was it Pippin? When Gandalf's like, yo, little hobbit dude, light the pyre. He climbs up the thing and fucking pours the oil and fucking lights the thing, right? Like, his whole entire life is complete shit. He's a total piece of shit. But he does that one motherfucking thing right. That's it. It's the greatest sacrifice, and it does the most good for the world. Because the books are called Harry Potter. But let's face it. And there are reasons why these things happen. Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter. But like I said, let's face it. Who's the whole world love? Hermurder, Hermurner, Hermurdity, Hermurdin, aka Emma Watson. The whole world loves Emma Watson. For real. And loves Harry Potter for fake. Fake. Faccio. Facere. Fact. Fake. Fact. Fiction.